The Grand Assembly Hall stretched across the heart of Nexus Prime like a cathedral made of starlight. Thousands of delegates, from hundreds of worlds, filled the curved seats that rose toward the domed ceiling. Holographic banners of the four great powers hung in the air above the central platform. The Tauran Dominion, the Krell Collective, the Nolari Trade Federation, the Vildan Empire. These were the masters of the galaxy, and they had ruled for 10,000 years before humans ever looked up at the stars. Ambassador Una Park sat in the lower section, where the junior species were placed. She wore the simple black uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Her dark hair was pulled back, and her face showed nothing. Beside her sat two aides who kept glancing at each other nervously. They had heard rumors about today's session. Una had heard them too. High Speaker Velan of the Tauran Dominion rose from his elevated seat. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. His voice echoed through the hall like the tolling of a bell. "We gather today to address a matter of galactic security," Velan announced. "The species known as humans have been members of the Galactic Compact for 60 years. In that time, they have spread across 200 worlds. They have built ships that rival our own. They have developed technologies that took other species millennia to achieve. This cannot continue." Una's expression did not change. She had expected this. Matriarch Essa of the Krell Collective spoke next. She was a small creature, covered in smooth gray skin. But she spoke for billions of minds, linked together as one. "The collective agrees. Human expansion threatens the balance that has kept peace for generations. They must be contained for the good of all." Chancellor Brix of the Nolari Trade Federation nodded his heavy head. He was a merchant species, and his people thought only in terms of profit and loss. Human traders undercut our prices. Human engineers build better products. If this continues, the economic order of the galaxy will collapse. Elder Gorath of the Vildan Empire simply grunted. He was a warrior, massive and covered in thick scales. His people respected only strength. Humans breed like insects and fight like demons. I have seen recordings of their wars on their homeworld. They are dangerous. Limit them now, or face them later. High Speaker Velan smiled and raised his hands. "Then, we are in agreement. I propose the Terran Restriction Act. Human fleets will be reduced to defense forces only. Human expansion will halt at current borders. Human technology development will be monitored and approved by a council of the four powers. All in favor?" 4 lights turned green. The motion passed. Velan looked down at the human section with something like pity. "Ambassador Park, you may now address the assembly." Una stood slowly. Every eye in the hall turned to her. The junior species watched with sympathy. The great powers watched with contempt. They expected her to argue, to plead, to beg for mercy. That was what junior species did. Una walked to the central platform. Her footsteps were the only sound in the vast chamber. She reached the speaking position and looked up at the 4 leaders who had just voted to cage her people. "High Speaker," she said, her voice calm and clear. "Matriarch, Chancellor, Elder, thank you for making your position clear." Velan frowned slightly. This was not the response he expected. "For 60 years, Una continued, humanity has served this compact faithfully. We built your communication networks. We designed your medical equipment. We maintained your ships. We patrolled your trade routes. We asked only to be treated as partners. Instead, you have chosen to treat us as threats." She paused and looked at each leader in turn. "We accept your decision." The hall went silent. Velan leaned forward. "You accept?" "Yes," Una said. "We accept that you see us as enemies rather than friends. We accept that you fear our potential rather than value our contributions. We accept that there is no place for humanity in your compact." She straightened her uniform and lifted her chin. "Therefore, effective immediately, the United Earth withdraws from the Galactic Compact. All treaties are void. All trade agreements are cancelled. All mutual defense pacts are ended. Human personnel will evacuate from all non-human worlds within 72 hours. The silence shattered into chaos. Delegates shouted. Translators struggled to keep up. Velen stood so quickly his chair fell backward. "You cannot do this," he bellowed. "No species has ever left the compact." Una smiled. It was a small smile, but it carried the weight of 8 billion humans who had finally had enough. "We just did." She bowed once, the formal bow of farewell, and walked toward the exit. Her aides scrambled to follow. The delegates parted before her like water before a ship. Chancellor Brix was the first to recover. "This is a negotiating tactic," he shouted after her. "You will come back to the table. You need us." Una stopped at the great doors. She turned and looked back at the assembled powers of the galaxy. "No, Chancellor," she said quietly. "You need us. You just don't know it yet." The doors closed behind her. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, Velan laughed. A brittle sound that echoed in the stunned silence. "Let them go," he said, settling back into his seat. "They will return within a month, begging for readmission. Humans are young and foolish. They will learn." The other leaders nodded in agreement. The session continued, moving on to other matters. The human withdrawal was treated as a minor disruption, an embarrassing tantrum that would soon be forgotten. None of them understood what had just happened. None of them realized that the woman who had just walked out those doors had not been bluffing. None of them knew that at that very moment, across 1,000 worlds, human ships were powering up their engines, and human workers were packing their tools. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. Humanity was done asking for respect. Now the galaxy would have to earn theirs. The first reports came within 48 hours. Chancellor Brix stared at his communication screen with growing horror. Across Nolari space, cargo ships were drifting off course. Navigation systems were failing. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries were suddenly breaking down. "What is happening?" he demanded of his advisors. A nervous technician stepped forward. "Chancellor, our navigation network runs on software designed by human engineers. The license agreements were tied to compact membership. When humans withdrew, they revoked all licenses. The software is shutting down." "Then fix it," Brix shouted. The technician swallowed hard. "We cannot. Chancellor, we do not understand how it works. The humans designed it to be simple to use, but impossible to copy. Without their technicians to maintain it, the entire system is collapsing." Brix slammed his fist on his desk. In the distance, another cargo ship sent out a distress signal as its navigation went dark. On the agricultural world of Krell 7, Matriarch Essa walked through dying fields. The great domes that protected the crops from the harsh atmosphere were failing. Temperature controls fluctuated wildly. Irrigation systems pumped too much water, then too little. "How long do we have?" she asked through the collective mind. The answer came from 1,000 voices at once. 3 weeks. Perhaps 4. Then the crops fail completely. Famine will follow. Famine will follow. 3 weeks. Who built these domes? Essa demanded, though she already knew the answer. Human engineers. The Park Choi Agricultural Corporation. They designed and built all 17 domes on this world. They offered to train our people to maintain them, but we refused. We did not want to appear dependent. Essa closed her eyes. Pride. Foolish. Stupid pride. Now her people would starve for it. One Duan. The Vildan Empire faced a different crisis. Elder Gorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, and watched as warning lights flashed across every console. "Status report," he growled. His chief engineer, a young Vildan with fresh scars from his warrior trials, spoke with shame in his voice. "The fusion cores are failing, Elder. All 12 of them. They were designed with human assistance 40 years ago. We have maintained them, but we never truly understood them. Now they are breaking down, and we cannot repair them. How many ships are affected? All of them, Elder. Every ship in the Imperial fleet uses the same core design. Within 6 months, we will have no functional warships. Gorath's claws dug into the armrest of his command chair. The Vildan Empire had conquered 100 worlds. They had never lost a war. Now, they were being defeated by their own ignorance. Only the Tauran Dominion remained calm. High Speaker Velan assured himself that his people were different. The Taurans were ancient and wise. They did not depend on human help. Then the power went out on Tauran Prime. Velan stood in darkness for 3 full minutes before emergency lighting came on. Aides rushed in with reports. The central power grid had failed. Backup systems were struggling. Hospitals were running on reserves. Millions of citizens were trapped in transit tubes that had stopped moving. "Explain this," Velan demanded. A terrified administrator bowed low. "High Speaker, our power grid was upgraded 30 years ago. Human engineers redesigned the entire system to be more efficient. They increased our output by 300%. But the system requires constant monitoring by specialized software that only humans can operate. When they left, they took the software with them." Velan felt cold for the first time in his long life. How did we become so dependent? Without knowing it. We ope. The administrator had no answer. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated itself 1,000 times. Hospitals discovered their medical equipment was human-designed and human-maintained. Factories found their assembly lines running human software. Space stations realized their life support systems used human patents. Communication networks went dark. Transportation systems failed. Commerce ground to a halt. For 60 years, humans had quietly made themselves essential. They had not asked for praise. They had not demanded recognition. They had simply done the work that others considered beneath them. Now the galaxy understood the truth. The humans had not been junior partners learning from their betters. They had been the foundation holding everything up. Admiral Teho Kang received reports from across Earth-controlled space. Every human had returned safely. Every piece of human technology had been recovered or disabled. The withdrawal was complete. "What is the status of the alien powers?" he asked his aide. "Collapsing, Admiral. The Nolari economy has lost 40% of its value. The Krell are facing food shortages on a dozen worlds. The Vildan fleet is stranded. The Taurans have declared a state of emergency." Teho nodded slowly. He took no pleasure in the suffering. Humans were not cruel by nature. But he remembered every insult, every dismissal, every time Earth had been treated as less than equal. And the messages from the Assembly? High Speaker Velan has sent 17 communications demanding our return. Chancellor Brix has offered trade concessions. Matriarch Essa has requested emergency aid. Elder Gorath has threatened military action, though his ships cannot actually reach us. Teho smiled grimly. "Respond to none of them. Let them wait. Let them think. Let them understand." On Earth, life continued as normal. Dr. Hana Choi worked in her laboratory on new engine designs. General Sun Woo Baek reviewed border defense plans. Children went to school. Workers went to their jobs. The sun rose and set. Humanity did not need the galaxy. They never had. The galaxy was only now beginning to understand that it had always been the other way around. And the silence from Earth was louder than any words could ever be. Without humans, the galaxy began to tear itself apart. The first shots were fired 3 months after the withdrawal. A Tauran patrol ship entered a disputed asteroid belt that both the Taurans and Vildan claimed as their own. 30 years ago, human diplomats had negotiated a careful peace. Both sides had agreed to share the resources. Human observers had monitored the agreement. Human ships had patrolled the border. Now there were no humans. And without them, the old hatreds returned. The Vildan ship that responded was running on emergency power, its failing engines barely holding together. But Elder Gorath had ordered his warriors to show strength. The Vildan captain fired first. The Tauran ship fired back. Within an hour, both ships were debris floating in the void. High Speaker Velen screamed at Elder Gorath through a crackling communication link. "You have committed an act of war." "Your ship entered our territory," Gorath roared back. "It was neutral territory." "The humans." Velon stopped. The humans had made it neutral. The humans had kept the peace. The humans were gone. The two empires moved to the edge of war. Fleets gathered on both sides of the border. Threats were exchanged. Ultimatums were issued. Neither side could actually fight. Their ships were falling apart without human maintenance, but pride demanded the show of force. Meanwhile, the Krell Collective faced starvation. The agricultural domes had failed completely on 3 worlds. Millions of Krell faced hunger. Matriarch Essa made a decision that would have been unthinkable a year ago. She sent her ships to the smaller species. The Ven, the Hollow, the Bright Ones. Species that had always been protected by the Compact but never truly respected. Now the Krell demanded their food supplies. "You will share your harvests with us," Essa commanded. This is not a request. The smaller species had no choice. They handed over their food and watched their own people go hungry. In the past, they would have appealed to the humans for help. Humans had always stood up for the weak. Humans had always fought for fairness. But the humans were gone. And the weak had no one left to protect them. Pirates and raiders saw opportunity. Trade routes that humans had once patrolled were now open hunting grounds. Merchant ships vanished by the dozen. Distress signals went unanswered. The criminal underworld, long suppressed by human security forces, exploded back into power. A group called the Red Stars became the most feared name in the outer regions. They attacked stations, plundered cargo ships, and sold captives as slaves. Before the withdrawal, humans would have hunted them down within weeks. Now no one had the power or the will to stop them. Chancellor Brix sat alone in his office, surrounded by economic reports that showed nothing but disaster. The Nolari Trade Federation, once the wealthiest power in the galaxy, was crumbling. Businesses closed daily. Unemployment soared. Food prices rose as the Krell hoarded supplies. In desperation, Brix made a secret journey. He took a small ship to the edge of human space, hoping to negotiate a private deal. Perhaps if he offered enough, the humans would help the Nolari alone. Perhaps he could save his people while the others suffered. Captain Minho Lee's patrol ship detected the Nolari vessel within minutes of its arrival. Minho was young for a captain, but Admiral Tejo trusted him completely. He had sharp eyes and a sharper mind. "Chancellor Brix," Minho said over the communication link, "you are in human space without permission. State your purpose." Brix's image appeared on the view screen. He looked tired and desperate. "Captain, I come seeking trade. The Nolari are willing to offer favorable terms. Exclusive partnerships, technology exchanges. Whatever you want. Please. My people are suffering." Minho considered the offer. He thought of all the times the Nolari had cheated human traders. He thought of the price-fixing schemes, the unfair tariffs, the constant disrespect. He thought of Brix voting for the Terran Restriction Act, with a smile on his face. "I will relay your message to Admiral Tejo," Minho said. "Please hold position." He transmitted the offer to Earth. The response came within the hour, directly from Admiral Tejo himself. Just one line. "The price is respect. You cannot afford it." Minho delivered the message. Brix's face crumpled with despair. His ship turned and limped back to Nolari space. He returned to his people empty-handed, with nothing to show for his journey but shame. On Earth, General Sun Wu Baek reviewed the latest intelligence reports. He was an older man with gray at his temples and scars from battles fought long ago. He had spent his career protecting Earth from external threats. Now, he watched the galaxy burn from a safe distance. "Should we intervene?" asked his aide. We could stop the war between the Taurans and Vildan. We could protect the smaller species from the Krell. We could hunt down the pirates. Sunwoo shook his head slowly. We could. But we will not. Not yet. People are dying, General. I know. Sunwoo's voice was heavy with sadness. And it breaks my heart. But if we save them now, nothing changes. They will thank us, use us, and then forget us again. They must learn the lesson completely. They must understand, truly understand, what they threw away. He looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. When they are ready to treat us as equals, we will return. But not one day before. The galaxy continued to fall. And humanity watched, and waited, and remembered every insult they had ever received. The lesson was not yet complete. 6 months had passed since humanity walked away. The grand assembly hall that once held thousands now sat half empty. The smaller species had stopped coming. They had lost faith in the great powers. They had seen how quickly the mighty fell when the humans left. High Speaker Velon stood at the central platform. He looked older now, his pale blue skin showing lines of stress that had not been there before. The other leaders sat in their places, but the pride was gone from their eyes. They had been humbled in ways they never thought possible. We must face the truth, Velon said, his voice echoing in the empty chamber. We were wrong. About the humans. About everything. No one argued. There was nothing left to argue about. Our civilization is collapsing. Velon continued. The Tauran homeworld faces power shortages every day. The Krell are rationing food. The Nolari economy has lost 60% of its value. The Vildan fleet sits useless in dry docks. He paused and took a deep breath. We thought we were the masters of the galaxy. We thought humans were beneath us. We were fools. Elder Gorath spoke, his voice rough with shame. I have studied their history. Humans have only been traveling between stars for 300 years. In that time, they achieved what took our species thousands of years. We feared them because they were better than us. We tried to cage them instead of learning from them. Matriarch Essa's collective voice was soft with regret. The Krell remember everything. We remember how human doctors saved millions of our people during the plague of Krell 9. We remember how human engineers made our worlds flourish. We repaid their kindness with suspicion and restriction. The collective is ashamed. Chancellor Brix simply stared at the floor. His people were starving. His merchants were bankrupt. He had nothing left but regret. Velon raised his hand. Then we are agreed. We must ask them to return. The message was composed with great care. It was sent on all frequencies, broadcast across every communication network that still functioned. For the first time in galactic history, the 4 great powers apologized. To the people of Earth, the message began. We were wrong. We ask your forgiveness. We ask you to return. Please. On Earth, Ambassador Yuna Park watched the message in her office. Admiral Taeho Kang stood beside her, along with General Sunwoo Baek. Dr. Hana Choi was there too, called from her laboratory to witness this moment. They want us back, Yuna said quietly. They want what we provide, Taeho corrected. That is not the same thing. Sunwoo pulled up data on his screen. Reports from across the galaxy scrolled past. Famine on Krell worlds. Civil unrest in Nolari space. Vildan ships stranded without power. Tauran colonies going dark. Pirates ruling the trade routes. Smaller species being crushed by the desperate great powers. If we go back now, nothing changes, Sunwoo said. They will smile and thank us. They will use us to rebuild their civilization. And then, when they feel safe again, they will push us down once more. It is their nature. Not all of them, Hana said softly. I worked with aliens for years. Many of them respected us. Many of them were friends. It was their leaders who failed, not their people. Yuna considered this. She thought of 60 years of service. She thought of hospitals built, and trade routes protected, and technologies shared. She thought of being told she was not good enough, not worthy enough, not old enough to deserve a seat at the table. She also thought of the children starving on Krell worlds, the innocent people caught in the conflict between Taurans and Vildan, the smaller species being crushed because there was no one left to protect them. We cannot abandon them forever, she said finally. That is not who we are. Humans have never turned away from those in need, even those who hurt us. But we also cannot return to the way things were. If we go back, everything must change. She sat down at her desk and began to write. The others watched in silence as she composed humanity's response. To the Galactic Assembly, Earth acknowledges your request. We recognize your apology. We are willing to consider returning to the compact. However, our terms are as follows. First, humanity will no longer be a junior member. We will be recognized as an equal founding power, with full voting rights and veto authority on all major decisions. Second, the Galactic Assembly will ratify a formal declaration recognizing human contributions to galactic civilization. This declaration will be taught in schools on every world. Our history will not be erased or forgotten. Third, a new Charter of Rights will be established, protecting all species from the kind of restrictions that were placed on humanity. No species will ever be caged simply for being capable. You have 30 days to accept these terms. If you refuse, or if you try to negotiate, we will withdraw the offer. This is not a bargaining position. This is our final word. She signed the message and transmitted it before she could change her mind. On Nexus Prime, the 4 leaders received humanity's demands. Velen read them aloud. The chamber erupted in outrage. They demand to be our equals. Gorath roared. We are ancient empires. They are children. They demand we admit we were wrong, Brix shouted. Publicly, formally, for all time. They demand we change our laws. Essa protested. Our entire system of governance. Velon let them shout. He let them rage. We have 30 days. If we refuse, they will not ask again. Our civilizations will continue to collapse. Our people will continue to suffer. Our empires will fade into history. He looked at each leader in turn. Is your pride worth more than your people? Ev. Alice. Well, our empires will fade into history. The silence stretched for a long time. Then, one by one, the leaders lowered their heads. They had no choice. They had never had a choice. The humans had won without firing a single shot. The day the galaxy changed forever began with a simple ceremony. Ambassador Una Park walked through the great doors of the Grand Assembly Hall. This time, she did not walk to the lower section where junior species sat. This time, she walked straight to the High Council platform, where a new seat had been added to the Circle of Power. Her seat. The hall was full again. Delegates from hundreds of worlds had come to witness history. The smaller species sat in the front rows, watching with hope in their eyes. The 4 great powers waited on the platform, their faces showing a mixture of shame and relief. High Speaker Velen stepped forward. His voice was formal, but there was something new in his tone. Something that sounded almost like respect. The Galactic Assembly recognizes Ambassador Una Park as the representative of the United Earth. In accordance with the new charter, humanity is hereby granted full membership as an equal founding power. All previous restrictions are void. All previous insults are formally withdrawn. He paused and took a deep breath. This next part was the hardest. On behalf of the Tauran Dominion, and on behalf of the Galactic Assembly, I offer our deepest apologies to the human race. We were blind. We were arrogant. We were wrong. We will not forget the lesson we have learned. Matriarch Essa spoke next, her collective voice carrying the weight of billions. The Krell Collective remembers all things. We will remember human kindness, We will remember human strength. We will remember our own failure. Let it be recorded in our eternal memory that humanity saved us from ourselves. Chancellor Brix bowed low. The Nolari Trade Federation pledges fair dealing with human merchants from this day forward. Your value is beyond measure. We are grateful for your return. Elder Gorath stood tall. Warriors did not apologize easily, but he had learned that true strength was not about pride. The Vildan Empire respects worthy opponents. 1. Commented. Humanity has proven themselves more worthy than any species we have ever encountered. You defeated us without drawing a single weapon. You have my respect and the respect of all Vildan. Yuna listened to each apology. She accepted them with grace and dignity. She did not gloat. She did not remind them of their failures. That was not the human way. She took her seat at the High Council table and looked out at the assembled delegates. Then she raised her hand to speak. Humanity accepts your apologies and your recognition. We are grateful for this new beginning. But we did not return simply to claim power. We returned because the galaxy needs us, and because we believe in something greater than ourselves. She activated a holographic display. Text appeared in the air above the platform. My first proposal as an equal member of this assembly is the Species Dignity Act. This law will ensure that no species, no matter how young or how small, will ever face the restrictions that were placed on humanity. All species will be free to grow, to learn, to expand, to reach their full potential. No one will ever be punished simply for being capable. The smaller species gasped. This was what they had dreamed of for centuries. Protection, recognition, freedom. Velen looked at the other leaders. They nodded. There was no opposition. The motion passes unanimously, Velon announced. In the months that followed, humanity returned to the galaxy. But everything was different now. Human engineers went back to the agricultural domes on Krell worlds, but they went as consultants, well paid and respected, not as servants doing thankless work. They trained Krell workers to maintain the systems themselves. Knowledge was shared, not hoarded. Human traders reopened their shops on Nolari stations. But they traded on equal terms, with fair prices and honest dealings. The Nolari learned that partnership was more profitable than exploitation. Human technicians returned to Vildan ships. But they came as valued experts, welcomed with honor instead of suspicion. The Vildan warriors learned to see human skill as something to admire, rather than fear. Human diplomats took their place on Nexus Prime. But they spoke with authority now, and their words carried weight. Old conflicts were resolved. New treaties were signed. Peace spread across systems that had known only tension. Captain Minho Lee returned to exploration instead of patrol. His ship ventured into unknown space, seeking new worlds and new wonders. He no longer had to guard against threats. He could focus on discovery. Dr. Hana Choi unveiled her new engine design. It would allow ships to travel twice as fast as before. She offered to share the technology with all species, freely and openly. The galaxy marveled at human generosity. Admiral Taeho Kang retired from active command. He had spent his career preparing for wars that never came. Now he could rest, knowing that humanity's place in the galaxy was secure. General Sun Wu Baek opened Earth's borders once more. Ships from every species were welcome to visit the human homeworld. Many came simply to see the planet that had produced such remarkable people. The years passed. The galaxy healed. Old hatreds faded. New friendships formed. The assembly functioned better than ever, with humanity's voice guiding it toward justice and fairness. One evening, Ambassador Yuna Park stood at a viewport on Nexus Prime, looking out at the stars. She was older now, her hair touched with gray, but her eyes were still sharp. She had given her life to building this new order. A young Tauran diplomat approached her. He was barely past his coming-of-age ceremony, full of curiosity and wonder. Ambassador Park, he said hesitantly. May I ask you a question? Yuna smiled. Of course. Why did you come back? The young Tauren asked. After everything we did to you, after the insults and the restrictions and the disrespect, you could have let us fall. You could have watched us destroy ourselves. Why did you save us? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the stars, thinking of Earth and humanity and all the long road that had brought them here. Because we are human, she said finally. We do not abandon those who need us, even those who once scorned us. That is our nature. We build, we help, we protect. It is what makes us who we are. She turned to face the young diplomat, but we also do not forget. And we never allow ourselves to be stepped on twice. The galaxy needed to learn that lesson. Now it has. The young Tauren bowed deeply. When he raised his head, there was something new in his eyes. Not fear, not resentment, not suspicion. Respect. Thank you, Ambassador, he said softly. I understand now. He walked away, and Yuna turned back to the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were exploring new frontiers. Human engineers were building new wonders. Human dreamers were imagining new possibilities. The galaxy had tried to cage them. It had failed. Humanity had not fought back with weapons or threats. They had simply walked away and let the truth speak for itself. Now they stood as equals among the stars. Not because they had demanded it, but because they had earned it. And the galaxy would never forget.